Okay, this is going to be a pretty strange, casual little video. We'll see. This is what I use when I spay dogs rather than a plastic cone for most of what I do with them post-surgically. So when they come to me, they're for sheep. They have this big long neck. They have this little opening for legs. This is what they are. When I am done with them, I have trimmed the leg openings to be bigger. I've cut the neck off. If I need to make the neck bigger, I will often cut the top and slit it that way instead of making the hole bigger, because these things stretch out really quickly. With the front legs, I usually do the same thing, do an uphill cut instead of making the hole bigger. With the hind legs, especially if I make that hole bigger, it will allow the dog to get to the spay incision more easily, so I always cut up here. Back here in the back, depending on how it fits with the dog, I will cut out parts so that the dog's vulva is exposed so that they're not urinating on this thing. All of these sheep clothes come with boy sheeps in mind, so they have an opening right here that is for the dog or the sheep to go to the bathroom through the male guy. That won't work for spay stuff, so I stitch it closed, which is easy enough to do. This is a cotton slinky thing, lamb tube they're called. This is cotton, this is spandex. This one breathes a little better than the spandex one, but the spandex one doesn't stretch out as quickly. Seems a little harder for the dogs to get. They don't mess with them as much. So I usually have 2 or 3 of these trimmed up and ready if I'm going to spay a dog. Let's see. Where the incision is against this tube, friction will happen, and that's not comfortable for the dog. So there needs to be something between the dog's body and these clothes. It can be a piece of t-shirt, it can be a 4x4, doesn't, like a gauze pad like vets have. Doesn't really matter, it just needs to be something that the movement of this will go against that instead of against the suture spot for the dog. The first 24 hours after a dog is spayed, I leave that plastic cone on them and I don't use this. Those cones are designed for dogs. Like if you have a dog with a head like this, you're going to get a cone like this for a dog like this. So what you need is a cone that is just a tiny bit longer than the muzzle of your actual dog. So put the dog in. Let's put those cones on with a piece of gauze instead of using a collar. Fix that. That's not comfortable. So I always thread a collar through them when I get them home. Put the cone on the dog and shove it all the way down against their chest as if they're pushing as hard as they can with it. And then look at where it is at the end of the dog's muzzle and cut it off so that there's not more than 1 inch past the dog's muzzle. That will allow the dog to eat and drink more realistically, and it doesn't need to be this much longer than the dog's nose. Sometimes some dogs I've been able to put those cones on backwards so they're actually facing the shoulders of the dog instead of forward. Hey guys, I knew this would happen. Some dogs with conformation that doesn't work. I don't know why, but sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Hey Josie, stop. But for the first 24 hours, Joes, please, hey. For the first 24 hours, I use that cone. I use the cone for the first 24 hours because it's absolutely critical that that dog leave that incision alone, and they're usually kind of drunk enough coming from the vet that that's not too disconcerting to them. The next morning, when I'm around and in the daytime, I will switch to this and I'll take that cone off. If I have any concern that the dog is going to mess with the suture at night, then I put the cone back on at night and take the clothes off. Take the clothes off periodically anyway so that you get good air to that incision. If dogs don't handle, if they are going to eat this and they're not happy wearing a cone, remember trazodone and talk to your vet about trazodone before you take the dog home. Because a little bit of trazodone on board will allow the dogs, like Valium for people, it will allow the dog to not be too stressed about wearing a cone, which is pretty strange. Some dogs handle that really well and some of them don't, but they all handle this well. I usually don't have to leave sheep clothes on dogs that are spayed for more than, not more than a week usually. When the sutures become kind of itchy a little bit healing wise, sometimes I'll have to put clothes back on for a little bit, but it's usually for about a week. The dog's ability to move around should be, they should be kept quieter than normal activity for, certainly for the first week, and not back to real work for 2 weeks. But this kind of thing usually is only the first week, and if you put something like this on them, I usually have a couple of them and I switch them out and wash them and stuff. Dogs handle them well, and that surgery doesn't have to be a horrible, scary endeavor for you or for the dogs. Think outside the box. This is outside the box. That plastic cone is what vets go to. You may be an owner that can be more creative than that. I've been doing this for years and it's marvelous. So that's my take.